Hiya and welcome to the next edition of A Horse Owner's Guide to the Skeletal System of the Horse. And today we're going to cover the rest of the spine, so the thoracic, the lumbar, the sacrum and the tail of the horse. So we're going to start off with the thoracic spine, and this starts off, you'll come down here at your horse's neck. So thoracic vertebrae 1, we call them T1 through to T18 as short. They can vary in shape and size. So you can see here T1 is quite a hybrid in between the cervical and the thoracic. And the first 3 thoracic vertebrae sit behind the scapula, and you can see they vary in size and shape. But as we come off of T1, they just sort of vary in size rather than shape. And then if we compare it to T18, you can see the difference in size here. So what you will mainly see, because these 3 are hidden behind the scapula, what you will feel as they come up is you will know them as the withers. And often as an owner, if you start at the withers and run your finger along the top of the back, you can feel these little bumps as you go down. And what you're feeling is the top here, because this is where the spine, the main body of the spine is, and the spinal cord goes through, but you're feeling the top here. And this is called the dorsal spinaeus process. Now, all a process is just a projection of bone that comes out from the main body. So these are all processes here. And what this does in the horse, so we have our rib cage here, and we have, if you listen to the other series, you have a pair of ribs, and what happens is the thoracic part will nestle in and sit in each pair of ribs. So we have the head of the rib and the tubercle, and there will be 2 attachments where the vertebrae sit. And this will go all along the back. We can see here how these bones here, the withers, are quite long bones. And these are long because they will form a bony attachment to help support the shoulder, the neck, and then the head, and all these muscles under here. And then as we come through to the last part, you can see this is where the rib cage ends. And this is often why your saddle fitter will say when you follow the rib, we can't go straight up because you'll be hitting into the lumbar. What we have to do is come round and we'll find the last thoracic vertebrae there. And then we have a little gap here, which often if you're running your finger along the top, you will come to this little gap here. And then we will start heading on towards the lumbar. So the lumbar is comprised of 6 vertebrae. And what you can see here, excuse me because I haven't finished doing this one, what you can see here is the top, so the dorsal spinaeus process is very similar in size to the last couple of thoracic vertebrae. But what is different when we look this way is we can see the transverse process here is quite small, but the transverse process, so think of wings on a plane, is quite large in this part here. And because of that, this still has to protect, this lumbar part is often classed as a weak part, but it still has to protect organs which lie below here. So what this has instead of the rib cage, it has a big, strong support network of muscles and ligaments here. And then as we come on, you can often feel, like I said before, let me just take the legs off this because it's easier. Let me take the leg part off and then we can do it. So, as I said before in the previous video, when we're feeling the horse's pelvis, these 2 top parts are the bony parts, what you can feel, and this is a tuber sacral, and we have a gap here. And this is called the lumbar sacral junction, because the sacrum here, all these bones are actually fused on here. So instead of us being able to move each part of the thoracic vertebrae, this moves as one. So what we often do is we will check the motion here and here to see if this has got mobile. And when we think of the sacrum and we think of the sacroiliac joints, they sit below here, quite deep down here. So this is how the sacral bone looks. And when we want to do it on a larger scale, we can see how it sits here. So then you'll know your therapist bounces here because they're feeling to see if this has motion in it. But what I find really important and the least talked about part of the horse is the tail. And the tail for me here, so this will attach here. And what you will find is these two will be on the bum of the horse, and then we will go further down as what we know as the dock and the tail. And if we're assessing a horse, we will ask for the tail to lift because this will move, and then we sort of know where the sacral bones start. But if your tail is off to one side and this is attached, then you're going to know the sacrum is going to be here as well. Or if your tail is tucked in between the horse's legs, how I describe it when I see these tails tucked in, it's like trying to run with your knickers stuck in your bum. You know that this sacrum is going to be pulled down, is going to be up here. So the tail is a really good indicator of where your sacrum is heading, and where your sacrum is heading is where the SI joints are under strain. So what does the skeletal system of the horse do? So here we do have flexion and extension. A lot of the abdominal muscles help with flexion in the spine. And then you will have heard of the longissimus muscle. It's the most muscle, sorry, I said that 3 times, that's talked about. That can help with extension. And then we've talked about the nuchal ligament. And then running off the nuchal ligament, we have the supraspinalis ligament, which will run down here. But then between each thoracic vertebrae, we will have another ligament, which you will often associate with kissing spine. So when these two bones go quite close together, often it's thought like this, that the ligament that runs in between is now null and void because it doesn't do a job because these are close together. But everything has its job and everything is there for the purpose. So there's quite a lot of bones when we're thinking about the spine. And remember, the spine, this is just the top. It's mainly here along the rib cage, along this top of this rib cage here, like this, is where the body of the spine goes. So you can see we have the hole here for the spinal cord to go through. So it's really important that the soft tissue structures around this area is healthy. We have good movement. I know some people think it's quite controversial and don't like doing it, but I do like belly lifts and pelvic tilts on the horse, because what this will help when we ask for a pelvic tilt, the lumbar can help with bending, and it can help with flexion, and it can help with extension. And when we ask the rib cage to lift up with these abdominal muscles, we also can create space in between here. So it's often a thought of, before we do surgery, can we do rehab to help these horses? And then often as well, when we think of problems maybe like kissing spine, we always think the problem can be up here. But I would always suggest maybe to get your horse scanned further down to make sure there's no arthritic changes in the joints down here. So yeah, so this is just a very glossed over version. I hope for you as owners to understand, because we can feel stuff, but actually when you look at here and look, there is only muscle supporting here, and how again the muscle from here will often go into your hip or the horse's hip, how it's really important. But yeah, I wish people would talk about the tail more, because the tail is so important. But hopefully this helps. Just understand a little bit more about the thoracic and the lumbar and the sacral and the tail area of the horse. And I know Arabs can have more or less, but they're special. So yeah, so hope this helps. Bye.